All right, today, guys, I'm going to be going over section 3.1 on solving one-step equations. And pretty much for the one-step equations, this is the basis of what we need to know in order to solve any equation. So I'm going to go through the steps on that. Okay. As you can see over here, the steps for solving one-step equations, you got two choices. In blue right here, I went ahead and I wrote one of your choices is to add or subtract. Okay, and I'll show you what those examples look like. And your second choice is you can either multiply or divide, and I'll show you what those examples are like as well. Okay, so let me start off with blue pen for example number one. Okay, example number one here. What we want to do is the directions are going to say solve, all right, for x. Okay, or they'll say solve the equation, one of the two. So I'll just make this example up. First one, we'll do this. We'll do x minus 3 is equal to 7. Okay. Now, what we have here is, just if you were to go ahead and off the top of your head, you know that the answer for this one is going to be 10. All right, 10 minus 3 is equal to 7. But what I want you guys to do is I want you to show me the steps on how you're going to go about solving for x, so that you're not just guessing and checking all the time. Okay? So I wrote this one in blue because this example follows the first step that you could use, add or subtract. Okay? Now what you see here is you just want to go ahead and you want to isolate your variable all by itself, but right now on this left-hand side, you have a minus 3. So what we're going to do to get that minus 3 out of there is we're going to go ahead and we're going to add 3 on this side. Okay? And if we go ahead and we draw kind of like a line through my equal sign, kind of like a wall there, whatever we do on one side of this equation, we also have to do on the other side of the equation. So you also have a plus 3 over here as well. So we're going to draw my line. Okay? Now, minus 3 and plus 3, that cancels out. So on my left-hand side, we're left with x. So you go ahead and you bring the x down right there. Okay? So you're left with x. Bring down your equal sign. And then on the right-hand side, you actually do 7 plus 3, and you end up with x is equal to 10. Okay? Now, to check your work, you take and you put the 10 back in here, and you know that 10 minus 3 on this side over here, if you did 10 minus 3, you get 7 equals 7. All right? Another example of adding or subtracting would be something like this. X plus 42 is equal to 95. Okay, now you'll notice with this one, I made it a little bit harder so that you can't just guess or check right away, so that you actually have to go ahead and you have to use your steps for solving one-step equations. Okay, so this one, if you went ahead again and drew your line through your equal sign to separate your equation there, all right. On the left-hand side right now, if you want to go ahead and you want to isolate this variable, you have x and you have plus 42. So we want to get the plus 42 out of there by doing the opposite. Oh, sorry, should be in blue. You want to do the opposite. You want to subtract 42 here and subtract 42 here. Okay? And when you do that, your 42s cancel out. You bring down your x, all right? And you have x equals, and then you have to do 95 minus 42, which is going to give me a 3 here and a 5, 3. So you end up with x is equal to 53. Okay? So those are the examples where you have to add or subtract to isolate your variable. All right? Example number 2 is going to be with the multiply or divide. Okay? So let's do this example. You ready? Negative 4m is equal to, let's go with 28. Okay, and we'll go ahead and this one we will solve for, so solve for m. Okay, so the variable we're trying to solve for this time is m. Okay, now you'll notice for this one, what is going on in between your 4 and your m? We know that there is multiplication right there. Okay? So what we do is, just like in these examples, when you do the opposite of subtraction, you do the same thing down here, where you're going to do the opposite of multiplication, which is divide. All right? So you're going to isolate the variable by dividing this time by your -4. And you never, ever, ever divide by the variable. Okay? This time right here, if you divide that side by -4, you also divide that side by -4 as well. And if you need to, draw your line in here again, okay, to separate your equation into two sides. All right? Now on this side, -4 divided by -4, that turns out to be 1, right? So you're left with 1m, and you can just go ahead and write m. You don't need to put the 1 in front of it. So you got m equals, and now you do 28 divided by -4. We know that a positive divided by a negative is a negative number, all right? And 28 divided by that -4 is going to give you -7. Okay? So that's when you have multiply, you go ahead and you do the opposite of dividing. All right? Another example is this. You ready? 2/3 2/3, we're doing m this time, aren't we? So let me erase that. So we got 2/3 m, all right? 2/3 m is equal to, let's go with 12. And we want to solve for m. So again, what's going on in between your 2/3 and your m? You have multiplication. So what we would want to do in this one is we want to go ahead and we want to divide by 2/3. But it is very difficult to divide by a fraction. And we talked earlier about division, all right? It's the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal. So in this example, what you're going to do is you're actually going to go ahead, instead of dividing by 2/3, you're going to multiply this left-hand side over here by the reciprocal, 3/2, which means you also have to do it to the other side. You're going to multiply by the reciprocal. Okay? Now, 3 times 2 is 6. 2 times 3 is 6. 6/6 turns out to be 1, so that cancels out, and you're left with m equals. All right? If you want to multiply two fractions, I'd turn this one into a fraction, and then you do 12 times 3 is 36, and 1 times 2 is 2, and 36 divided by 2 gives you 18. That right there, guys, section 3.1, solving one-step equations. Okay?